Don't forget, the world economy is going to go into recession. The whole world economy is going to go into recession. They say UK, the West. The whole world is going to go into recession. Keep your money properly. So many banks will be closed down in 2023. The world economy is going to go into recession. I'm saying this. Because we say bank. But the starter says Ketu is ruling. And so the world is going to go into recession.
We start with the biggest headline in the world right now, America's banking crisis. It's a financial contagion, to be precise. 2 banks have gone bust, 2 major banks back to back. They failed over the weekend. First, the Silicon Valley Bank, and then the Signature Bank. This one is based in New York. Yesterday, regulators had to shut it down. And these are America's biggest bank failures since 2008. You may remember the Lehman Brothers story of 2008. It triggered a global financial crisis. So the question is history repeating itself? Is another Lehman-like episode in the making? The bank closures have spooked the world. There are reports of steep losses. America's biggest banks have taken a hit. Last week, they lost a staggering $100 billion. On Vantage tonight, we'll tell you what happened, why it happened, and whether you should be worried, wherever in the world you're watching us from. Does it impact you? We start with the Silicon Valley Bank. Some of you may not even have heard of it. But if you work in the American startup space, you know this bank is a big deal. Silicon Valley Bank, or SVB, is the banker to the American tech industry. It was opened in 1983. So Silicon Valley Bank worked with American startups, and it was among America's 20 biggest banks. Now it has collapsed. The question is why? And this is the interesting part. For a bank serving the tech industry, the SVB collapsed in a rather old-fashioned way. There was a bank run. People were taking out their money. The bank could not pay its depositors. It went broke. And so regulators had to shut it down. The British government is concerned too. That's because Silicon Valley Bank had a presence in the UK as well. HSBC acquired it today. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is visiting the US. When he arrived, the bank failure was the first thing he brought up.
Well, I understand the concern that people have got around what's going on with Silicon Valley Bank. That's why I've been working with the Chancellor all weekend, and indeed on the plane flight over, talking to the Bank of England and our regulators about finding the best solution. The government will have more to say on this very soon, but what I want to reassure people is that we will continue to support our world-beating tech sector and all the high-class jobs that it provides, but also that our financial system is resilient.
And that was just one part of the crisis. On Sunday, part 2 played out. U.S. regulators were seen in action again. They shut down another bank, Signature Bank in New York. It is in no way related to SVB. Signature was already a distressed bank, but what happened at SVB precipitated its fall. Signature Bank had made bets on the crypto market. It suffered major losses. The bank had lost 40% of its value. Its owners were looking for a buyer. They were trying to shore up their finances, but they failed. So the regulators had to step in again, and the headlines went from bad to worse. Signature is the 3rd biggest bank failure in American history. What does the U.S. government say? The U.S. Treasury Secretary is concerned.
You mentioned Silicon Valley Bank. There are recent developments that concern a few banks that I'm monitoring very carefully. And when banks experience financial losses, it is and should be a matter of concern.
This is indeed a matter of concern. There is now a crisis of confidence. American banks have recorded major losses. Their stocks have nosedived. Last week, U.S. banks lost $100 billion in value. European banks also saw losses. Their value declined by at least $50 billion. And what about the depositors? The good news is they will get their money back. That's because the deposits in these banks are insured. In fact, SVB depositors were supposed to get their money today. Those Signature Bank customers will have to wait, but they too will get their money. That's the assurance from Washington.
Americans can have confidence that the banking system is safe. Your deposits will be there when you need them. Small businesses across the country, the deposit accounts at these banks can breathe easier knowing they'll be able to pay their workers and pay their bills. And their hardworking employees can breathe easier as well.
But is that enough? What about the American banking system? There are doubts about its health now. The global markets are feeling the jitters. Asian markets opened in the red today. Indian markets suffered losses. Of course, there were other factors contributing to this. But the bank failures in the US dealt the worst blow. So should you be worried? Experts say while the developments are worrying, this may not be a repeat of the Lehman crisis, not yet. In the meantime, New Delhi is watching the developments in Washington. India's State Minister for Technology spoke out yesterday. His name is Rajiv Chandrasekhar. He will meet Indian startup founders this week. India will assess how the failure of Silicon Valley Bank may impact Indian startups. This is a developing story. We'll be tracking.